twilight years of the Roman Republic, when ancient traditions clashed with raw ambition, Marcus Antonius emerged into a world of unprecedented transformation. Born around 83 BCE, during the bloody dictatorship of Sulla, Antony's early life mirrored the turbulent age that shaped him. His family heritage painted a complex portrait. On one side stood his grandfather, Marcus Antonius Orator, one of Rome's most celebrated public speakers. On the other, his father, Marcus Antonius Creticus, whose naval command against Mediterranean pirates ended in disgrace and accusations of corruption. The Rome of Antony's youth was a crucible of change, where the very foundations of the Republic trembled. The city had outgrown its republican institutions, its influence stretching from the misty forests of Gaul to the sun-baked deserts of Syria. The Senate, once the beating heart of Roman governance, struggled to maintain control over generals commanding loyal armies and provinces yielding immense wealth. The reforms of the Gracchi brothers had unleashed social forces that threatened the traditional power structure, while Sulla's march on Rome had demonstrated how easily the Republic's constitutional safeguards could be swept aside by military might. Young Antony's formative years unfolded against this backdrop of political upheaval. Unlike the austere character of his future rival Octavian, Antony embraced life with characteristic excess. He roamed the streets of Rome with the city's golden youth, accumulating massive debts, a common practice among ambitious young nobles who viewed money as merely another tool for forging political alliances. By 58 BCE, pursued by creditors and seeking both escape and purpose, he fled to Greece. There, in the birthplace of rhetoric and philosophy, he studied the arts of war and persuasion, unconsciously preparing himself for the monumental role he would play in Rome's transformation. The Mediterranean world of the 1st century BC provided the stage for Antony's rise. Rome's dominion faced challenges on multiple fronts. To the east, the Parthian Empire maintained its independence, offering refuge to Rome's enemies and challenging Roman expansion. Egypt, though nominally independent under the Ptolemaic dynasty, had become increasingly entangled in Roman politics, its vast grain reserves and wealth making it an irresistible prize. To the north, the unconquered Gallic tribes represented both a threat and an opportunity, a situation that Julius Caesar would soon exploit to devastating effect. This was a world that molded Mark Antony, a republic in crisis, where traditional paths to power were being rewritten by ambitious men with armies at their command. The old certainties of the Roman political system were crumbling, creating opportunities for those bold enough to seize them. Antony's early life, marked by both privilege and scandal, prepared him perfectly for the role he would play in this great drama, not just as a supporter of Julius Caesar, but as one of the key architects of Rome's transformation from republic to empire. The relationship between Mark Antony and Julius Caesar stands as one of history's most consequential political partnerships. Their association began in 54 BC, when Antony joined Caesar's Gallic campaigns as cavalry commander. In the blood and mud of Gaul, Antony distinguished himself not merely through military prowess, but through his remarkable ability to win the loyalty of common soldiers, a quality that Caesar, himself a master of popular appeal, recognized and valued. The years between 49 and 44 BC marked Antony's meteoric rise to power. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon in 49 BC, igniting civil war, Antony stood firmly by his side. At the decisive Battle of Pharsalus in 48 BCE, Caesar entrusted Antony with command of the left wing, a position that proved crucial to victory over Pompey's numerically superior forces. As Caesar consolidated his power as dictator, Antony served as his master of the horse, effectively becoming second in command of the Roman state. Yet their relationship was not without tension. Caesar occasionally expressed frustration with Antony's public excesses, his drinking, and his theatrical displays of wealth and power. Caesar's assassination on the Ides of March, 44 BC, thrust Antony into the spotlight. His funeral oration for Caesar remains a masterpiece of political manipulation. Standing before Caesar's bloodied body in the Forum, Antony turned public opinion against the assassins while carefully positioning himself as a defender of Caesar's legacy. However, he soon found this position challenged by an unexpected rival, Caesar's young heir Octavian. The complex dance between Antony and Octavian defined the next phase of Roman history. Initially allies against Caesar's murderers, they soon became bitter rivals, their conflicting ambitions threatening to plunge Rome into another civil war. The formation of the Second Triumvirate with Marcus Aemilius Lepidus in 43 BC represented a temporary political solution, but it could not mask the fundamental incompatibility between Antony and Octavian's visions for Rome's future. Enter Cleopatra VII, the last Ptolemaic ruler of Egypt. Her relationship with Antony, beginning in 41 BCE, transcended both romance and political expedience. In Cleopatra, Antony found not just a lover or ally, but a partner who shared his grand vision of empire, one that would fuse Roman power with Hellenistic culture and Egyptian wealth. Their relationship scandalized Rome, providing Octavian with powerful propaganda weapons, but also represented a genuine attempt to create a new kind of Mediterranean empire. The political marriage between Antony and Octavia, Octavian's sister, in 40 BC added another layer of complexity to these relationships. Despite this attempt at reconciliation, the fundamental conflict between Antony and Octavian continued to deepen. Their competing visions for Rome's future, Octavian's Rome-centered traditionalism versus Antony's Eastern-oriented cosmopolitanism, made their eventual clash inevitable. In the final act of his life, Mark Antony embarked on an extraordinary attempt to reshape the Mediterranean world according to his own vision, while his rival Octavian carefully maintained the facade of Republican tradition in Rome. Antony increasingly embraced an alternative model of power in the East, drawing inspiration from Alexander the Great and the Hellenistic monarchs who succeeded him. Antony began to craft a new synthesis of Roman and Eastern rule. Antony's behavior in the East between 41 and 31 BC reveals a man working to construct something unprecedented in Roman history. He adopted the trappings of a Hellenistic monarch, claiming descent from Hercules and the god Dionysus. Yet this was more than mere theater. It represented a genuine attempt to create a new kind of imperial authority, one that might bridge the cultural divide between East and West. The donations of Alexandria in 34 BC marked the boldest expression of Antony's vision. In a grand ceremony, he distributed territories to Cleopatra's children, effectively creating a network of client kingdoms that would combine Roman military might with Ptolemaic administrative efficiency. He declared Caesar Ion, Cleopatra's son by Julius Caesar, to be the true heir Caesar, directly challenging Octavian's position. This act, while politically disastrous in terms of Roman public opinion, demonstrates how completely Antony had embraced his own alternative reality. In Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra created what contemporaries called the inimitable life, a court culture that combined Egyptian grandeur with Hellenistic learning and Roman power. They established an intellectual circle that included scholars and artists, suggesting that Antony envisioned Alexandria, not Rome, as the cultural capital of his new empire. This was a mere decadence, as Roman propaganda would later claim, but conscious attempt to create a new political and cultural synthesis. The Battle of Actium in 31 BCE represented more than just a military contest between Antony and Octavian. It was a clash between two fundamentally different visions of what the Roman world could become. Octavian's victory ensured that Rome would remain the unquestioned center power, while Antony's dream of a more culturally diverse empire centered on Alexandria died with him in 30 BCE. Antony's suicide, following his defeat, was characteristic of his dramatic nature, yet his final act carried deeper significance. It marked not just the death of a man, but the end of an alternative path for Roman history. The questions he raised about identity, power, and cultural integration would continue to resonate throughout Roman history. The empire would eventually adopt many aspects of Eastern monarchy that Antony had embraced, but would do so gradually, under the careful management of Augustus and his successors. In the end, Antony's tragedy lay not in his subordination to Cleopatra, as Roman historians would claim, but in his attempt to create a reality that Rome was not yet ready to accept. His vision of a multicultural empire, while premature for his time, foreshadowed the cosmopolitan reality that the Roman Empire would eventually become. In this light, Antony appears less as a victim of his own excesses and more as a man who glimpsed a possible future but failed to bring it into being. Subscribe and welcome to the Empire.